to our first FastTrack Supercharged Workflow series session. It is on design review. I am Angela Aff. I am one of the customer engagement advocacy managers here at Bluebeam. I work with our Bluebeam user groups. I work in the online community. And so it is so fun to get to meet all of our different users and really get to know how you're using Bluebeam. So I love my job. I love getting to meet all of you, and I'm super excited to have all of you here today. Happy Friday if you are in the United States. All right, so before I hand it over and why all of you are here today, just have a couple of housekeeping items. So first and foremost, I know this question will come up and I'll answer it in the chat if I see it, but there are the recording is happening and I will share it out after the session is done, and it'll probably be available next week. And I will send an email to all of the registrants or attendees, and you can access it through the online community. We'll share the slide deck out, so you will have access to all this. Second, this is supposed to be an interactive session. So you are encouraged to, ask questions throughout. We encourage you to unmute. So if you have a question during the presentation, please feel free to unmute or contribute if you have a question. Just so you know, all attendees are muted upon entry, but you can unmute yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable just unmuting, that's totally okay. You can always raise your hand. If you have a specific question about Q&A, or if you have a Q&A question for the Bluebeam team, please use the chat so that way we can track them and help answer any questions. It's just a little bit easier for us to manage the questions coming in. And, as community members, help your peers out. If you see someone asking a question in the chat, that's totally fine. But just, say, hey, you might want to put that in the chat so we can track it. Our session presenters can respond to the questions, and you can also upvote questions that you see coming in. So, all right. So why all of you are here today, this is our fun agenda. I'll give the series overview, just a little intro about meeting the team, then we'll jump into the presentation and have a wrap up. So what is the FastTrack Supercharged Workflow series? It is really about us being able to share those best practices from our Bluebeam experts, and you're really receiving complimentary advice and expertise from our experts. And so since we'll be talking about these Bluebeam Max features, we are really talking to you about how you can apply Bluebeam Max to your existing workflows to really enhance your work. And this is the space for all of you to come in and ask any questions you may have. And so that's why we're saying, hey, let's hear from you. And I'm saying it again, we are encouraging you to unmute and ask any questions. And if you've tried something, let us know. What are you trying out to incorporate in your design review workflow? What questions do you have? What's working? Are there any hurdles, right? This is supposed to be this complimentary session where our experts are sharing their expertise and their advice or their recommendations, and then, of course, hearing from all of you. So meet your FastTrack Supercharged Workflows series team. Today we have Lucas presenting, and joining as a co-presenter is Eric, and then Charles, he is also one of our workflow consultants that is here. He'll be helping to answer any questions. And then Marco, who you see in the online community, as well as Joya. I am so sorry, Joya, I forgot to add your name on here, but we are here to just help out and help answer any questions, like putting those faces to the names that you see in the community. So with that, I will stop talking and I will hand it over to our friend, Lucas.
All right. Thanks, Angela, for the warm welcome. I'm Lucas Wilhoit, one of the consultants here at Bluebeam, came from the industry before joining Bluebeam November of 22, so coming on 4 years. What we're going to talk about really today is, what you see on the screen. We'll go over some new Max features that, I think enhance the design review workflow. I saw in the chat, looks like maybe we have some estimators, some other folks here as well. So I definitely think you can find ways to implement these max features, depending on, even if you're not in that design review space. Specifically, I'm going to walk through stitching at the very beginning. I think gone are the days of taping up drawings, all across an office or like a job site trailer, right? That's essentially what Bluebeam has solved with the stitching functionality. I'll also talk about magic markups. So specifically convert to, duplicate as, and offset is what we're going to look at, how to use those, and provide maybe a good use case for each one of those. I will also give Eric the screen, at least for just a little bit. As a licensed architect, very familiar with the Revit, the AutoCAD space, and he's going to walk you guys through what those connected sessions with Revit really look like and how they're being used. We'll walk through these first three things somewhat quickly, but I definitely want to spend a decent amount of time on the review connected to AI, so MCP. I'll go through prompts, skills, projects. This is of course, all going to be inside of Claude today. If you have some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we get going. And just to point out one more time, like Angela said, this is supposed to be an open discussion, right? Not like the typical webinars where it's not really that way. It's a little bit more intimate. So feel free to either raise your hand, unmute, and we'll start the discussion itself, or type it in the chat and I'll keep my eye out over here on the left screen as questions come through. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so what I have right here is what I would call our best practice design review workflow. We're not going to walk through the whole thing today. That's not really the intent. The goal is to kind of point out where some of these Bluebeam Max capabilities fit into, maybe what that existing workflow was, right? We're trying to enhance that with the Bluebeam Max subscription tier. So I'm just going to use this kind of almost as a guide to refer back to, hey, where are we in the process? What does this function do to help me, throughout, I guess, this workflow that we're looking at. But before we really start going through that workflow, I'm mostly going to talk about MCP functionality and how that affects this workflow. And I think you'll see where stitching and magic markups and, things like that really fit in. So as far as stitching goes, let's go ahead and look at these airport drawings right here. Is what we'll use for stitching. So the stitching panel itself, you can find it over here. So how you can usually go to your thumbnails, your tool chest, etc., right? We'll have a stitching panel down here with the Bluebeam Max subscription. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this A1.1.1 and A1.1.2 is the two drawings that I'm going to use. So I know based on this drawing, I do have a match line over here. If you don't have a match line, that's okay. Having the match line definitely makes it a little bit easier, I would say, but you don't necessarily have to have one on the drawing, right? As long as you know where those, I guess, two connect to one another. So I'm going to go ahead and grab add match line right here. Let's zoom in so we can get kind of a more exact point, and then I'll zoom out and drag that down. I am going to hold down shift here just so I can have a straight line. Let go. Let's come back to the hand. We'll zoom out. And then I want to select the region itself. In this case, I am going to grab the entire drawing. So that way I pick up those general notes down there on the bottom, as well as that first floor plan south call out. We'll put this just before the A, B, C, E, those grid line marks, and select that. So now we'll go to the next page here, and we're really just going to repeat that process, but this time here on this page. So again, let's grab that match line, zoom out a little bit to make scrolling down a little quicker. And then one more time, let's select the region of this page and we'll see the results of this. I do want to make sure to include these rooms here on this page. So I'm going to come out to the left a little bit. And that should be good. All right, so let's make sure that we have a match here and we have a match right here. So we'll press Stitch Drawings. And this is just saying maybe we need some manual alignment. For the most part, you won't need to. If you want to lock it along that match line, you can do so by clicking right here. But as you see, we had a first floor plan, and this is labeled incorrectly. These are just maybe some demo drawings. Should be east and west. But now we have the entire floor plan here all in one drawing. So depending on what kind of projects you're working on, right, this could be something that's really useful. What I have really in mind, and I know this isn't exactly the audience, but like imagine building like a road, right? This could be something where you could stitch, a dozen drawings across one another and really see what's happening. I think there's so many warehouses being built or AI data centers, right, where it's just such a massive building. I think this is something that there's a great use case for. So that is everything stitching as far as how that process really works. Doesn't take too long to set up, in my opinion. And like I said, you can keep adding match lines and kind of just going down the line. Next, I'm going to talk about magic markups before I hand it over to Eric for him to show us those Revit connected sessions. So some of those magic markups, let's go back to the airport
One
drawings
quick
here.
question on stitching.
Yeah, sure.
When would you use stitching? Would you still want to have separate pages with the match lines?
So you're saying like how I still have my two drawings here, but I also have the stitched over here.
So if there's a review session, you'll still have separate sheets, but I guess you use stitching as a personal document to review.
I think that's a great question. I think it's probably personal preference. I think what I would do is grab this stitching result and maybe copy it here. And you could choose to, just go ahead and slip it in right here potentially. That way, as you're going through these drawings, like maybe if you intend on putting this drawing set in a studio session, right? This stitched page would be included, inside of that session here. So I think it's up to you though, how you want to go about that, if you want it as a personal document or not.
Okay.
Peter.
When you stitch this, is it also pulling in markups or is it just a snapshot of that page?
It does pull in markups. So you'll see here, I have just only a couple. I have these two markups here. But then when I go to the stitched page, those markups did come through as well, right here.
Do you take ownership of it if somebody else did that, or how does that work? That markup, would it be yours, or if somebody else did that in the session, right? Or is this even something that
So
you
what
could
I
do
was
for a
looking at,
session?
what I was looking at right here is the markup data itself doesn't exist in the markup summary report. So it's basically taking, I guess, kind of a screenshot of what exists on that given page, right? Versus like here, I can actually select my markup that I have placed on that stitching result. This is simply, it's a snapshot is a better way to think about it, I would say.
Looks
Okay,
like
thanks.
Oh, sorry about that. Looks like we have a couple more questions coming in. I love it. Lucas, looks like Mark is first. Mark, take it away.
So with this same stitch, could you apply those settings to the other trades, being MEP, ductwork, sprinkler, without having to do manually each of those two separate pages to get the same looking document?
You would have to stitch, those mechanical drawings or, whatever it may be. So if I come back to here, I don't have a lot, but there's some civil and MEP drawings down here at the bottom. You would need to grab, yeah, you have to add match lines and regions pretty much on every sheet. And then once you've created those, you can start stitching them together, but you would have to do that process again for, each of those drawings.
Okay, and then same scenario when the architects make a revision and issue a new set of PDFs, you manually have to stitch.
Yes, you would have to do that just because it's a different document, but I think that's great product feedback and something that I'd be interested to know. Think about how the overlay function works, right? And how there's an auto align included in Bluebeam. I'm curious to know if, because that auto align exists, Bluebeam can detect, grid lines and scales. So kind of like think about custom columns, you can import those. I wonder if there's a way that we could bring that feedback and say, hey, can we import export like stitching settings, right? I don't know. Just food for thought maybe for both of us.
The other thought I had with regards to the MEPs, like if you overlaid all the MEPs and then just stitched those two overlays together, I don't know if that's like saving you any time, but
That would be, I mean, it would be nice to see, because then you could see changes across, an entire floor plan essentially, rather than just one, like east, west, north, south, whatever it may be. Ryan, I think, was next, I believe.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Basically two quick questions. I noticed on the stitched image, there was a horizontal alignment issue. The grid line A doesn't carry across, and that might be the note about the manual adjustment still needing to be done. But is it possible to draw or to use two match lines from the source sheet so that you're getting grid intersections when you stitch it together?
I do not believe so, no. But what you can do is you are able to manually adjust these a little bit if you would like to. I think there's a couple issues here. One, these drawings aren't perfect. They work for a lot of demos inside of, what we are trying to show in Bluebeam, but I can at least try to adjust this to where, like these walls are lining up, which should, in theory, make the rest of this line up. The grid line or the outside of the drawing itself doesn't quite, but you can manually adjust it just a little bit like I did there.
Yeah, it relies heavily on everybody's views being in the same place on a sheet of the same size across disciplines for that sort of copy paste to work, I guess, effectively. But my second question was, does it deal with scale? Could you stitch drawings of different scales, and is that somehow a setting or based on the length of the match line you draw or anything like that?
I have not tried to stitch drawings of different scale. What I would think is, I think it would have to do more with the page size itself, is what I'm thinking. But I can't say I've tried, so I don't have an answer for you here today.
No worries, thank you.
Paul. Looks like you are muted if you're saying anything.
Okay, I have to unmute at the top, not on
There we
me.
go.
When you're doing this, if with these stitched drawings together, if you're making if you mark up something, will it go back to the original drawings, or will it, is it just on this drawing?
So this is creating a new, what's the right way to word this? When I created the stitched drawing from, I did it from this set here, it created this stitching result document. So to answer your question, you would be marking up a different document. And even though I grabbed this stitched document and copied it and I pasted it into this drawing set here, it would be the same thing, right? Because I essentially added a page to this document set. So it would not translate your markups from one to the other.
Okay. So this would just be good for presentations. It's not good for checking or getting things back and forth.
I think that there would be some different use cases for it. Just when you're needing to see the entire, construction site at once. With that said, I am going to move on, be a little bit conscious of time here. So let's talk about magic markups for a little bit. So the first one, we'll talk about convert to. So my example that I really have right here, let's find this markup. So I will go to this carpet markup that I have here. So what we can now do, and this doesn't have to be, just a measurement markup or whatever it may be, right? But I can convert this straight to a different tool inside of here. So maybe we're doing a takeoff, and the flooring type changed from one revision to the other, or you accidentally placed so many markups of a specific flooring type, and then you realize like, oh, this is not carpet. That's kind of that example that I have. So once I click on this, I can grab my laminate tool and then hold down that control key, and you'll see how that symbol changes here, right? So with holding down the control key, I can just click. Oops. Excuse me. Want to remove these. It's grabbing this entire. There we go. All right, let's zoom back in and do that one more time. So now we're actually grabbing this existing markup. I'll grab my laminate tool, hold down that control key, and I can click, and it's going to keep, all the data. So, the lines that I have here at every corner, that same measurement, but it's changing, that color because I have the laminate as a different color, as well as the subjects and things. So this is a quick way when, maybe revisions happen or you placed markups that are actually, you realize were incorrect. A quick way to, correct that is the way that I would look at this, is using that convert to key rather than historically, you would potentially just delete the carpet markup and then go grab a new markup and place it down, or you would change something, down in the markups list. There's different ways what you could have done. Now we just grab one tool and convert it over. Duplicate as. So this example that I have here, I'll click down on this markup and let's zoom out just a little bit. So I took some volume measurements right here. I think another good use case really for this could be maybe you have a rectangle or a text box placed over a markup when you're doing maybe a design review on revision 1. And then when revision 2 comes out, maybe you import all of those comments from revision 1 onto your revision 2 drawings, kind of as a checklist, you can duplicate those existing markups, but maybe you want to change it to a cloud to kind of note that, hey, this is a comment from the next revision. But I'm going to grab all 3 of these. So if I hold down the Shift key and select them, I can grab all 3. And then I can right click and we have duplicate as, and these are my options. So, I'll just do it as an area for this example, but it places them right on top. And you will see that I have these 3 area measurements added down here in the markups list itself. So like I said, doesn't have to be for this exact use case, but you can duplicate tools as different tools now. And the last magic markup we'll talk about is the offset. So I'm going to come grab this restroom markup that I have placed, and let's close the markups list. So in this example, I'm pretending like maybe we're deciding to add a restroom wall over here. I already placed the first wall here just for ease and a little bit of speed. So I do on my units, this is 10 by 10, just a rectangle. 2 options here. One, I can click straight on this existing markup that I have. I can go up to edit and we have offset. The other option is the shortcut, which I find to be great for this. It's just the letter O. So if I click O, this gives me the opportunity. So I know that the wall is, let's say it's 6 inches. That's what the rest of these are measuring in this drawing. So up here, I have my distance. So how far do I want that offset to be? I have it set to 6 inches right now. I can manually type. You can offset it as either what that existing markup was. So in that case, it was a poly length, or I could choose to offset it with a different type of tool. But once I do that, let's click O again, and then I'm going to place this on the inside and just left click once. So I can choose to hide these units as well if I want to see that. This is really just adding, another markup on the drawing, but it's offsetting it based on what you have. So maybe you want to do this around some doors. Great for walls if you're just trying to sketch out, hey, we might add this here. Of course, you might want to go back, add that in Revit, AutoCAD, whatever it may be. But we do have the offset tool now in Bluebeam, which I think is awesome. Any questions on that before I hand it over to Eric? Jesse?
Yeah, for the matching functionality, when you are converting a tool to have the different output, like when you went from carpet to laminate, can you convert a simpler markup like a polygon into an area?
So let's grab polygon here, and I'll just, kind of place that. Right click, convert it, and now we have area. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? All right. With that said, Eric, I'm gonna pass it over.
Excuse me, I had a quick 2 questions.
Sure.
Sorry to butt in.
No, all good.
Okay, so connected tools are unique to the page. So if you were to click a tool, select a tool, and then apply it to a page, and then if you were to turn the page and continue to apply the tool, all of those tools are connected uniquely on the page, which means they would have to be split on the page when you split them. So if you're going to convert a tool, does it convert all the tools of that type? Does it convert all the tools that are unsplit and connected, or does it convert all the tools on the page?
I'm thinking about that. So give me a good example. Like if you put like a count tool for
specifically
for lights or something.
Yeah, like a bolt. If you're placing a bolt, hold down whatever it might be. If you place and you continue to place, you're placing connected tools that can be split, or they can be left connected,
Right.
which give you certain manipulation properties when using the tool. When you swap pages, if you still have that tool selected and you continue marking it up, those connected tools are connected per page. Like if you were to take the search function and you apply a markup to all pages, if you go to the specific page and delete that markup, it only deletes the markups from that page, which tells us that connected tools are unique to the page that they're on, not the entire chain of use for the tool. So if you're changing a tool on one page that's a connected set of counts, an unsplit set of counts, I'm assuming it would change it all for the page.
Well, right here, I was testing this, and right here on these count tools that I just check marks, right? I just grabbed it from up here. Cannot convert count tools, likely because of what you're talking about, right? I do wonder if I was to split these. Let's do split. Yeah, we'll split all here, which that only splits it on this page, right? But yeah, just because of a count tool works, it's different than a, let's say like a poly line to a poly length.
Okay.
What would you want to be converting it to, I suppose?
I mean, so there's already this functionality in Bluebeam. Let's go to a tool. It's the drop-down menu, but it's a little bit cumbersome and it doesn't work perfectly. You have to change the label when you do it. But that's kind of how the functionality works now. You would select the markup list. You go to the tool properties. You would select a drop down. You would apply the tool across all selected markups. That would probably be the implementation that I would go with.
Agreed.
So, my second question is regarding when you duplicate a wall. Technically, you could duplicate markups, and let's say you were using a ledger, you'd have, let's say, ledger, a 5/8 bolt, 2 5/8 bolts at 12 inches on center. You're going to need a nut, a washer, epoxy. You're going to need all of those things to be applied where that ledger is, which I find that to be a great use case. If you could duplicate and change it to a totally different tool, I would recommend being able to pull multiple lines at once, as far as an extension of that, or just in the main functionality of Bluebeam. I think that would speed up markup significantly. So if you have a 5-line stack, you got to pull every line, as opposed, or you got to copy the lines, you got to, pull the links and extend the links. So just a little bit of, maybe not exactly the use case here. I don't know if you could duplicate that line and turn it into another tool where it could be, it was in the markups and it could be exported as a tool with unique properties. But almost as just a base function of Bluebeam, there probably should be a way to pull multiple lines at once when you're pulling 5-line stacks. 10, I mean, sometimes it could be 10 lines. I'm not sure if this functionality or this update has that functionality.
Does the multiply function somewhat solve what you're trying to do?
No, because you would have to, let's say you had a ledger. Let's say you had a ledger at a stair. When you need to pull the bolts, and then you need to pull the nuts, the washers,
different materials. That makes sense.
Each time. This is very close to a feature that I would like. And it basically, so what you just did is basically an elevator ledger all the way around. I literally just put them on a set of plans. And
so if you could duplicate it as one of your tools, that
would be really useful. Or if you could duplicate as one of your tools, although you're going to have slightly different counts, but you already have slightly different counts. Nobody's pulling like perfect
Right.
perfect lines all the time. Generally, you pull the bolts and then you pull the associated hardware outside of that. So you have more hardware than you have bolts. If you could duplicate it into another tool, that would be a workflow option. Or if you could just pull multiple lines at one time, that would be my suggestion. But that would be a functionality I might look into. That's my input.
No, I love it. And that's what these meetings are all about. We want to hear, what you guys are looking for. So we will definitely take any feedbacks like this to product and see what they have to say.
I had a quick additional comment related to that. I noticed I was trying to format paint, one tool onto something I already drew, and it just copies like the color and style of the lines. If you could format paint a tool where it copies the subject, the label, and like all of the other pieces of metadata, like that was something I was thinking might help somewhat related to what he was just saying.
That is essentially what convert to will do, because it convert to brings all that metadata with it, like the subjects and the labels and the data in the markups list, which is what I did here. Go ahead, Angela.
I was just going to say, we are getting so many questions about Revit and MCP, so I want to make sure we get to those too. So let's, if it's okay,
Yeah.
we'll hop over there and get
Let's
to
do it.
them. And if we cut you off, we promise we'll keep track of all your questions and we'll include them in the follow-up as well. So just want to help get everybody to their topics.
Yeah, Angela, thank you, and thanks, Lucas, for leading us through this first part. I wanted to jump in here and talk a little bit about the Revit connector that's included with Bluebeam Max. As Lucas mentioned, myself, I lead our workflow consulting group. I am an architect. That's the world I came from prior to being at Bluebeam. So my world was Revit, AutoCAD, SketchUp, that whole thing. So the way this works and the way this kind of folds back into a bigger workflow is, as you all probably know who are using Revit, when you have a Revit model, you produce 2D sheets out of the Revit model, somebody else potentially marks them up or redlines those sheets, then you hand those back to the person that is able to update the model. So that's a disconnected process, right? There's not a direct connection between the markups that are happening on the 2D sheets and the model that's happening in Revit. So what Bluebeam Max allows you to do is it allows you to connect those two together. So what you'll see here on my screen is I have a studio session open right now. So hopefully you are using studio sessions or you know what a studio session is. I'm not going to go into that so much, but basically we've created these sheets out of Revit with our Revit plugin, which I'll show you in a second. Uploaded those sheets into a studio session. Then it functions just like a typical session. We can mark that up. We can add comments. You'll see there's already comments here in my session on things that need to happen, things that need to be adjusted in Revit. So if I jump over into my Revit model here, so this is basically that same sheet in my Revit model. You'll see up here at the top in Revit, we have an add-ins button. That's where you can see a Bluebeam section. You'll see create PDF, change my settings. You'll also, with Bluebeam Max, see a connected sessions button. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to access information and basically open up that studio session in a panel in my Revit model itself. So I can come in here and click on connected sessions. It's going to open this panel for me. It's going to show me all of the sessions I have available to me. This top one is the one we were just looking at. So if I click on this Chicago office connected sessions file, what happens here is it adds the markups as a view layer, or basically as data I can see on my Revit model itself. So I can come in here, and if I come in here and zoom in on this, you can see that column wrap is still here. The glazing up here is also here. The nice thing about this is if I click on these little spheres are representing that markup in 3D space. So if I come in here and click on that, it'll highlight this over here. This is basically looking at a smaller version of the markups list from the studio session. So I can look at this and say, I'm the one who made this markup at this date and this time. This rejected is a status, so I can actually update a status here, and this will update in my sketch, in my studio session. I can even leave a comment here, and it will add the comment back to the studio session, to that markup itself. So as people are marking this up, these pieces will show up here in my Revit model, and I can come in here and say add glazing, and I can say we'll do by 7/13/26 or whatever I want to say, right? And if I submit that, that added that comment to that markup. As I do that, it'll show up in my studio session at the same time. So it's a nice way to sort of connect these things together. So we're looking at the same set of data, the same data point from that studio session being that source of truth for the 2D work that I can then look here on my sheet. The other great thing in here is I can actually see those as well in a 3D view. Come on, here we go. So if I click open my 3D view of the model, those spheres will still show up in 3D space. So you'll see all those represent those comments, and I zoom in and spin around in here, you'll be able to see all that. If I click on one of these or highlight over it, you can still see all the comments. You can see it says no finished keynote visible. I can click there. It's going to show me what that markup is, and it's going to take me to the sheet that markup is on. So this is some other markups that we've made in here, and it says electrical keynote present, no legend to define it. It's talking about concrete 01, the finish in that electrical room, the concrete 01, concrete 02, things like that. So I can still see that information in my 3D view as well. So it's really just a way to connect that session, to connect those two things together, and be able to use it. So hopefully some of you are using Revit. Hopefully this looks like it could be something that is useful to be able to sort of streamline that process of getting these comments made and things like that. So any thoughts or questions on this? Does this look useful to folks? Or is anybody here using this currently? Be curious to see how it's going, what you think. If you're actually using it, feel free, like Angela was saying, unmute here. Some of the, oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. Quick
Morning.
question. I work in an architecture firm. Does everybody needs to have Bluebeam Max to have this plugin in Revit?
It's a very good question. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Or only us, for example, the architecture that we are modeling can have it.
Yeah, that's a good question that comes up often. Is the piece that you need Max for is the visibility of the markups in the Revit model. So that's what this that add-in up here at the top was. That's this connected sessions button. You need to be able to push that to be able to see the markups in the Revit model. That's the person who needs to have Max, because that's a Max specific function. You can create the PDFs, you can put them into the studio session, people can mark them up in the studio session. They don't have to necessarily have Max to do so. The piece where Max comes into play is mapping them onto the Revit model. So whoever's in Revit doing that work and needs to see it is the one who needs to for sure have Max. That's a very good question. Yeah.
And a follow-up question with that. Can you filter those markups? Because like currently I'm working on a big project, and if I see all the markups of everyone or the sheets.
Right. Yeah, there are some filtering here. Let me see. I don't know. Let me see if it'll turn on and off markups in my. Yeah, I can filter my list here, but it's not going to filter what's being shown on the drawing itself. It's going to show all the markups on the drawing, but it's going to be able to filter basically this markups list view that we have over here. And I can highlight and click on these to jump around in my file, but it's not going to only turn off. Basically, it's not going to turn off the markups that are showing in the Revit model and filter them, just filter the list over here. So it's probably not exactly what you're looking for, but at least it can help. At least it can help a little bit, where you can see a list and then you can sort of click through this list and jump around how you need to. And then you
nice.
can
Sweet.
always turn it off too. If you don't want to see them for a period of time, if I just back out of the session, it turns them off. And if I click back into the session, it turns them back on. So there is a way to sort of disconnect it completely, but there's not a way to filter the graphics.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, Angela, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I'm totally going to butcher your name. Rui, we'll have you ask your question, and then we'll probably have Lucas jump to MCP, but keep your questions coming. So all you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very
Hi.
much. It's great to see this. So I understand from just the image you showed back there that the comments are persistent across the model and not across a specific view. Is that it? So if I place it on a view, I will still be able to see it on the 3D, but also on other view. Is that it?
Yeah, it'll show up. It's going to show up on this. It's showing up on this sheet. It's not going to show up. If I had another view, if I had a cropped down version of this view on another sheet, that's a good question. It might actually, you know what? I haven't tested that. That's a good question. If I had, let's say, an enlarged plan,
3D,
right?
Yeah, you showed the 3D. So immediately what struck me, okay, that's great. I place it on a view and it floats as a sort of a breadcrumb in the model. It means that any view I have and I've placed the comment in there will show that comment, which is great.
That's a good question. Yeah, like we have this comment here in the kitchen, and I know I have a enlarged view of the kitchen on another sheet somewhere. So I think you're right, because it is doing it in 3D space and it is doing it from the 3D model. It'll be able to do that. So that's a very good question. But I definitely want to test that out. So
okay, I'd love to see that. So I have two more questions, Angela, if you allow me.
So you know what? Is it okay if you put? I promise we'll follow up with you. I know MCP is such a popular topic, so I want to make sure we get to it. But put your questions in there, and we'll definitely get to them. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, though this is specific about this, I'll post the questions in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great.
I appreciate
much.
it. All right, Lucas, all you.
All right. A lot of questions coming in. Definitely wanted a few more minutes, but let's fly through this and talk all things MCP. So just to lay, I guess, some ground rules, prompts, skills, and projects. Again, this is all specific to Claude. So, what are they? When are we using each one? What's the goal? What are they best for? This is kind of a document that I put together to try to give a quick explanation. So really that one-off task, that's when you're simply just going to use a prompt, right? So maybe you want to change red markups to green as a really simple example. That can be, I would say that could just be done as a prompt. You probably don't need to build a skill for that. When we're talking about skills, the example here is building a submittal log from an entire spec section. That's something that I have done. I saw a question in the chat. Can you look at the index and compare it to all of the drawing sheets? So do they match one another, right? That's something that I would create a skill for. So things that you want the same input and output each and every time. Typically, when it's maybe a multi-step process. So in that case, Claude is checking every index title against every single drawing sheet in the entire document, right? So I would probably build a skill to make sure that we're getting the same output. And then lastly, projects, which is, it's the context. So think of it this way: when you are just typing simply a chat into Claude over and over again, new chats, you're not really building that same type of memory, and you're going to get different results because of that. It's going to lead to that, I would say. So build a project. Claude, inside of that project, it will have that memory. It'll have context of things you've done in the past when you have liked the output that was given. So that would be my recommendation. Look more into that. So what are some things we can do inside of that design review workflow that I showed there at the very beginning that are really useful for this process? the first thing I want to show is this design review preparation. So what I did through this skill, all I had to say was design review prep. And what Claude did, it provided page scales, it provided page labels, bookmarks, and it gave me all the statuses. So if I go to customize inside of Claude, this is where my skills that I've built all of these exist. That design review prep that exists right here. So if I click on that, this see more, down here at the bottom, you'll see, they call them trigger words essentially. So when I said design review prep in that chat, that was signaling to Claude to go do everything that you're seeing right here. Now, for those that haven't used, AI maybe too much, or you've never built a Claude skill, I am not a coder by trade at all. Claude is excellent at building skills. Talk to it and explain what you're trying to accomplish, right? And that's the thing is, did I get this correct on the first attempt? No, I didn't. There would have been page labels, probably this document you're looking at, airport drawings clean. This was done by Claude. So all of these page scales were applied by Claude, the page labels. Down here at the bottom, these statuses, or the custom statuses, I should say, what I have it doing right here, inside of here, manage status. So this designer view model with these states, these were built by Claude. When I change this, I even have it programmed to, if it's accepted, I wanted it to be green, or in progress was this yellow color. If it's completed, then I just kind of gray it out, right? And you can take that and apply it to what your workflow would look like. But this took, for Claude to do all 4 of these things, probably about 5 minutes. And I think it's one of those things, run it, go check your email for a few minutes, go use the restroom, whatever it is, come back, the drawings are ready to go, throw them in a session. The one thing I will point out right now with 2110, as far as setting scales go inside of Claude, currently viewports don't exist. That will change. So whenever we have drawings that have multi-scale sheets, the skill that I've built, it calls those out, and it does not give you a scale on those sheets right now. Eventually that will change. But right now, it's just going to call them out and say, hey, I didn't apply a scale to these. When I flip back to review, apologies for going back and forth. I'm trying to be a little bit quick here. That 1 inch to 1 inch, that is essentially saying that Claude didn't set a skill. So that's how the prep can really be used. I'm going to go to the design review status color scheme here. So this was me building a skill. You guys saw that long list. There's some code in there, just so much, right? I said, let's make design review statuses. And I told Claude what I was looking for. Claude comes down, it gives me all this info. I didn't exactly like the output, so I said, try again. Also, let's make the light gray. I wanted it to be a little darker than what it was originally. So Claude updates that. And then right here, I said, okay, let's create a skill of this. The submission post, that's help with when I'm posting these on the Bluebeam community. You guys, all of the skills that you saw inside of here in my customize, I've posted, I think all but 3. There's a few that I haven't put in there. And you can take them and try them for yourself. But that skill gets saved, and all I have to do is press save skill. This is not something that takes a background in, computer science or whatever it may be. Anyone in this call is capable of doing this, and it's really just maybe taking the time to try to learn it and understanding what functions exist inside of Bluebeam. The one more thing I'll add is, you might say, well, Lucas, I can add page labels myself in 60 seconds. That's true, and I agree. If you want to try to keep your token usage down, maybe still apply the page scales or page labels yourself, but let AI do the tedious thing, like applying scales across an entire drawing set. So as far as doc prep, that's what I have for you there. Reviewing drawings themselves. Very simple prompt here. Let's change all the markups with status accepted to completed. Claude has access to change data inside of your columns. Claude can build custom columns for you. Use it to your advantage. This is an example of when I would just use a prompt and I wouldn't use a skill. This ADA compliance check right here, you're probably saying, well, I don't know if I could trust that. I would recommend take a step back and let's think about what is this actually doing? So can Claude read drawings as in, can it tell that this black line is the top of the roof? No, it cannot. But any text that is inside of the drawings, Claude is going to pick it up, and it's very good at understanding what that text means. So what I have here, if I click on, this was that compliance that I ran. Inside of the skill, I gave it the ADA handbook, essentially. So I think that's like a 280-page document, something along those lines. And when it's finding text, such as, this papered towel dispenser at 70-inch max, does that align with what is in that handbook? The answer is no, it doesn't. So Claude is calling those types of things out that it's finding in the notes and things. I think one day AI will get to the point, can we measure from, a toilet to a restroom partition? Do we have enough clearance space? I think eventually we'll probably get there. But right now, that still needs to be done by a human. This is going to try to help you along the way with finding issues in regards to general notes text. And you could put building codes in and try that. I've done it with building codes as well. And I seem to get some decent outputs with it. Build skills for all of these is my biggest recommendation. Other key things I would look at as far as Claude goes, exporting data efficiently. So you can can you already export a door schedule? You can, and that's, edit or file export, right? You can also do that through Claude. Get it into Excel documents, other documents that you want to be able to filter and use easier. Something else I did as far as this wasn't exporting, but this example inside of community that I posted was embedding the door schedule data. So what I essentially had Claude do here, and this might be a little difficult to see, but I said, I want Claude to grab all of the headers from a door schedule. So we have from room to room, width, height, door material, jam, fire rating, hardware sets, right? Claude took the headers of the door schedule, made a custom column for each, and then it grabbed all the data inside of that schedule and highlighted where all those doors exist on the drawing plan based on the number, right? The text value that's there. So to me, this is giving us all of that data exactly where that door exists. And this is just one example of how you can try to embed data into different parts of the drawings. I think this was a huge win whenever I was able to make this one work. I think there's other use cases. Eventually, hyperlink will be available, which at that point, maybe I would just hyperlink where the door exists on the floor plan to the schedule itself. I don't know if I would take it this far, but just another really cool example that I found. Two more things that I want to go through as far as, comments. Three more things, actually. So coming back into, let's go to Claude. Design review feedback tracking. So I've built a couple different skills as far as this goes. Again, a skill. So I just said design review comment log. What that did, I'm going to pull this Excel document. So I ran this on a set of drawings that had quite a bit of markups. It was from a session. We all put some comments on there just to, have some demo documents. That document is right here. So I have 3 tabs. I have my comment log here. It's giving me these statuses. This ball in court, this is something that I told Claude to add, and this wasn't actually from a column. I'm still in the middle of would I actually use this one, but getting this data out and getting it into a place that it's more usable, right? The markup summary reports are okay that are generated from Bluebeam, and I think I'm willing to acknowledge that they can get the job done if you filter it and sort it correctly. You're able to get this data out really, really well when it comes to Claude, straight from the markups that you've placed. To take this even further, something you could do is, okay, maybe you're using this document as a checklist, you're updating the drawings inside of Revit, and you want to say, verify egress dimensions, we're going to change this to closed. you could upload this document once you've closed or updated all the statuses back into Claude and say, hey, update the statuses in the drawing accordingly, right? So it kind of can work back and forth to an extent. If you don't like this format, this is what I call the QC dashboard. So this has KPIs up here. So all the markups, it tells us how many have each status, how many authors. This breaks it down a little bit more between statuses, authors, pages. And then we have detail, which includes all of the markups that have been placed, right? And in this case, I do have, I didn't add this. I told Claude to give me the document with these filters up top. I would recommend doing the same on this design review comment log document. And then the other thing I will talk about is when you're using the reply function inside of Bluebeam, all the text, you know, it just gets added to an individual line item, which I don't think there's another way to go about it inside of the markups list, but it can be a little bit hard to follow. And I think maybe the same from the markup summary report. Claude can generate great reports from all of your comments. When did those comments happen? And put it more into a thread of, you know, an actual, almost like you're having a conversation with that reply feature inside of Bluebeam. So these are the things that I really wanted to show you today is, you know, how is Claude empowering Bluebeam? There's a lot that we can do by simply putting a PDF straight into maybe not just Claude, just an AI model in general. But I think Claude is empowering Bluebeam by getting this markup data out, running checks, and adding highlights where it matters, right? So when I did that submittal log, for instance, I can have it highlight each individual place, you know, maybe it's a product data and give me that the data on the highlight that exists in the markups list. So those are the types of use cases that I'm really looking for. I highly recommend that you guys come to this AI prompts library inside the community. I'm trying, you know, over and over just to find new use cases for this. Like I said, if I click on, you know, this QC dashboard, for instance, that skill is here. Download the skill, import it into your Claude, and give it a try. As new releases of Bluebeam come, so 21.11 will be next. That's a whole new batch of ideas and use cases for this MCP inside of Bluebeam, because more functionality, like I said, you know, viewports, hyperlink, etc. Whatever's going to come down the road, the functions that we have in Bluebeam, those will continue to be added inside of Claude and give Claude the ability to do that as well. I apologize for, you know, getting that going a little late. We had awesome questions throughout in regards to stitching and convert to. With that said, we were able to give this about 15 minutes. We have Peter, I know you've had your hand up for a little while, so I do want to answer questions. It's okay that we're a couple minutes over. If you guys can hang around, I'll definitely hang around and have a conversation about this.
Okay, thanks. So with Claude here, right? Is that information all sandboxed, or how is it sharing that with Claude right now? So when you use this feature, is my information being shared? Is it sandboxed?
So you're saying your information from like your drawing set?
Yeah.
That would be, you would be giving that information to Claude, which that's where you can connect with, you know, like if your organization has their own model, there are ways to connect that as well if there's security concerns. But yes, your information would be given to Claude, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. And there's no plans to, like what you're saying is we could use our own sandboxed AI, or just our own AI model here, but there's no plans for you guys to kind of not give that information to Claude.
Well, that's, as far as Claude goes, that's something that Bluebeam we are not able to change because we're connecting Claude to Bluebeam via that by MCP. So if you had your own model, you could connect it to Bluebeam with MCP, and all that data would stay, I guess, within your organization. But by using Claude, that's when you're setting your Claude up, you essentially have to give it access to that data, right? And we can't change that at Bluebeam. Hopefully that
sounds
makes
good.
sense.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments on this? Something that I worked on quite a bit. Definitely excited about it for, what the future has. I think there's a lot of use cases for it. If not, Angela, I'm going to hand it back over. Thanks everyone for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas, and thank you all of you. So many great questions that came through. So again, I know that we didn't get to all of your questions, but don't worry, we will absolutely take a look through all of them and help answer them. We'll have this, since there's so many, we'll have this available, the recording and the sessions available within 2 weeks. And they'll be available in the online community. And I will send an email to all of you to let you know that they are available. As Lucas shared, we have the AI prompts library, which what Lucas had shared. So shared skills, shared prompts, and we also encourage any of you to submit the ones that maybe you have learned and have. So we're building that up. We also have Max FAQs. That's where your questions will be. So just as a way, because your questions that you have, we're sure other people have them as well. And then we have a technical support site that has tons of great information about all the Bluebeam Max features. And then we do have Bluebeam University courses that's specifically on MCP and how-to videos on each of the features that Lucas had covered. So definitely check those out. I did put them in the chat, but I can send them in there again. And then just another quick little announcement. We have some great sessions that are coming up. We have a 30-minute tips and tricks webinar on what's new in Bluebeam. So check that one out. Then Eric will be joining us on July 24th for a community workflow talk that we're having. We have a United States and Canada Bluebeam user group happening on August 28th. Then we have again, Bluebeam Max features on FastTrack Supercharged workflow series. September 18th will be takeoffs, and then we're saying December 4th or 11th TBD, but we want to hear from all of you. What would be interesting to find out? So I will share those in this chat again. But seriously, thank you all so much. This was the first one that we did. So thank you for joining. We're learning with all of you on this, and we're learning how to do these. So this is great. So with that, thank you seriously for your time, your contribution, your questions. Have a great rest of your weekend. And within 2 weeks, we will have this sent out. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.